If I were to ask you which teams have the most to prove this year, where would you go? Because I did ask that earlier today, and I agree with you guys on a lot of these. Some of them I do not agree on, like Penn State. A lot of you said Penn State has the most to prove this upcoming year. I'll get to them. I cannot agree with that. But many more of them you came at me with, and this is very obvious. So like Florida State, yes. Is there anywhere other to start in college football than Florida State when we're talking about teams that have a lot to prove? So they went 2-10 this past year, notably. I remember how big a deal that was when Georgia Tech beat them in week 1, and then Boston College beat them, and then Memphis beat them. They did, in retrospect, it kind of feels like they upset Cal. And then there was 6 more losses in a row, squeaked past Charleston Southern, and then lost to Florida. So if 2025 is not drastically different for Florida State, I may be out. I have not bailed on Mike Norvell. I have not bailed on the idea that he's a good head coach. I just have this vision in my head. This is the nightmare scenario for them. And that is he's got too far down the portal rabbit hole, and he got burned on it. So he struck gold, and then he got burned on it. And he's not an idiot. I think Mike Norvell knows the way it should be built. But they're going into yet another year this season where they're leaning pretty heavy on portal. And his problem is he's not 1 or 2 years in. He's 4 or 5 years in. And realistically, in my nightmare scenario in my head, what it would take for them is to really hit reset and take 2 or 3 years and rebuild the thing. You don't get time to do that, getting paid what he gets paid. This is Florida State. You don't get time to do that. So if it doesn't go well this year, and there'll be a lot of randomness again this year because they're going heavy on portal again, new quarterback, new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, I'd probably be out because I think a lot of Florida State fans would be out, and that's fair. What do you need that you don't have there? USC, same thing, man. Same deal. I haven't bailed on Lincoln Riley, but they're coming off a 7-6 year, and I'm looking at the 3 years he's been there, 11-3 to 8-5 to 7-6. You know what they call that on the streets? They call that regression or something worse. And I know all the reasons. I could make the case. If Lincoln Riley were here and his voice was shot and he needed me to speak for him, I could tell the tale. I could talk about how he hired poorly when he got there. He staffed poorly. He knew it pretty immediately, but he didn't want to be disrespectful and cut guys loose as soon as he took them to L.A. from Norman, so he probably stuck with them a bit too long. He has realized the error of his ways. He has changed his staff. There was immediately return on that investment defensively this past year. However, it's not an overnight fix because they didn't get into the ditch overnight, but things are looking up. Okay, that's probably what he would say. What I would say, if I were a USC fan, is, well, prove it then. Prove it. So this upcoming year, I mean, recruiting does not feel elite with them. It's okay. It's not elite. The energy around the program is very suspect from an outsider's perspective. I don't know the USC program inside very well. From an outsider's perspective, if I'm a fan, from a fan's perspective, I don't feel a ton of energy around here. We had another several players leave via the portal. We took some, but we lost some. Is that a huge net upgrade? I don't think so. It's year 4. It's year 4. If we're not significantly improved record-wise, you know what we're running the risk of? We're running the risk of falling off the radar, and Lincoln Riley's running the risk of kind of slipping towards irrelevance as a head coach. And that is something I never thought I'd say. I hope I don't say it. I hope that is kind of eliminated from the equation early in the 2025 season because I think a lot of Lincoln Riley. But it don't really matter what I think if the results don't match. They should be a prime player in the Big Ten. And instead, it's Oregon on the West Coast, and then you look back towards the heart of the conference over there in Ann Arbor, Columbus, of course, State College, just non-factor. USC a non-factor. Bunch of close games last year. It may be as simple as flipping that. Who knows? Maybe it's that easy. It never is. At LSU, little mental exercise here for you. Let's say you and I watched Brian Kelly together in his first year at LSU. He comes in, they upset Bama, they go on to win the SEC West. And then let's say I froze you in time, and I said, okay, I'm going to guarantee you a couple of things over the next 2 years. You're going to have a quarterback that wins the Heisman. Saban's going to retire. You already won the West. In year one, you went to the SEC title game. 2025. Given the information I just told you, when I unfreeze you in 25, where do you think the program will be? If you told me that, if you let me watch year one, he wins the West. If you told me I can't give you the results of the next 2 years, but Saban's going to be gone, you're going to at least win one Heisman at the quarterback position, where do you think you're going to be in 2025? I would think I would be the favorite to win the national championship. I would think I was easily a top 3 program, and they're not. They're coming off a 9-4 year, 8-4 regular season. They got blasted by Alabama. They lost to USC, good game, but they lost another opener. They went to Florida and lost. They didn't finish. They finished okay, but that second half of the season, wheels kind of came off. And so then you lost Bryce Underwood. Now, that is where I look and I say, but then what happened? Because what happened after that is I think they've put together a really good roster for this upcoming year. Recruiting good, portal extremely good. And so losing Bryce Underwood, and man, that sucked. That was a bad headline. The way the season ended, not good. But you got a really good quarterback coming back, desperation in the program. I think they've put together a good roster. Identity is a question with them. What's the identity of LSU football right now? Can you rattle that answer off? Because I can't. That's why I ask. I really, like I said, really like the roster moves. Love the defensive staff. Think this year, those moves that he made last year will really start to pay dividends. I think LSU should be a playoff team this upcoming year. So they have that to prove. I don't think that's an unfair expectation. I don't think it's unfair at all. Same area of the country. Auburn, year 3, Hugh Freeze. I've been willing to wait. I don't know that everyone else has been. I've been willing to wait. I thought he inherited a pretty bad situation, roster-wise. So it was going to take some time. And what have they done? They have recruited 3 top 20 classes, 2 inside the top 10. They just landed the number 6 class. They landed a top 5 portal class, went and got Jackson Arnold at quarterback from Oklahoma. So Freeze is 11-14 so far. They just went 5-7. They missed a bowl game. They ought to contend for a playoff spot this upcoming year, too. These are lofty expectations, Josh. No, they're not. The head coach at Auburn in year, 3 or year 4, 3, whatever it is. No, that's not lofty. That's perfectly reasonable to be given 3 years to clean things out, to clear out the dead brush, plant your own seeds, and start to see returns, start to see growth. That's not unreasonable. You get Bama at home. You get Georgia at home. This should be the year that I really see, boom, all right, Hugh Freeze, Auburn. That's what it's supposed to look like. Still a lot of wild card about them, though. They open at Baylor. Weird, but I like it. Penn State, I do not agree with this at all. I'm including Penn State because a lot of you said Penn State. A lot of you, what was the question I asked directly? I want to make sure I worded it the right way. I said, which college football program has the most to prove in 2025? Many of you said Penn State has the most to prove. Penn State just went multiple rounds in the playoff. They played for the Big Ten championship. I thought they had a really good year. How do they have the most to prove? So I was scrolling, and some people, not Jesse, but some people said it's national championship or bust for Penn State. That is never the status of Penn State football, in my mind. I guess some of you disagree with me. Why would a place where I've never watched them win a national championship in the modern era have that standard in your mind? Sure, James Franklin should feel that way. Sure, that's the standard they should hold them to internally. But me, if I'm just living in Harrisburg, minding my own business, you're telling me my standard for Penn State football is if you don't win the national championship, you have failed. I will never view Penn State that way. I don't even view Ohio State that way. And Ohio State's won them. I don't view Bama that way. They've won them. National championship or bust is insane. So anyway, that was what I read. That's why I'm including Penn State here. I heavily protest this. There's a good chunk, though, of returning talent. I know that. I'm not blind. I see what you guys are seeing. There is still a lot to prove. A lot of these guys that just got humiliated and this embarrassing last-minute loss to Notre Dame, and they're all coming back. They're kind of seeing what Ohio State did, and they're saying, all right, let's get our nucleus to come back. Yes, I see that. But that nucleus, I wouldn't say is good enough to just be expected to be right there competing for a national championship this upcoming year. Competitive, okay, but let me give you the devil's advocate perspective, since all of you are trying to heap this unfair pressure on James Franklin, poor James Franklin. You know, let's feel sorry for him. Someone's got to feel sorry for him. Was 2024 really that different? This is an argument that can be made. I'm just saying this is an angle that it's fair to take. Was 2024 that different? Was the caliber of this Penn State team in 2024 that different? Because by my estimation, they still lost the big games. They lost to Ohio State. Ohio State melted down against Michigan, which allowed Penn State to backdoor their way into Indianapolis. It was deserved, but it did not look like they were going to be there. They go there. They end up being competitive against Oregon, but they lose to them too. So they had a couple of shots against the big boys. They lost. They go to the playoff, get the most favorable draw that any team's probably ever going to get in the playoff. So they beat Boise. Of course they should have. They beat SMU before that. Of course they should have. Then they ran into Notre Dame, and they lost to Notre Dame. So in the grand scheme of things, devil's advocate point of view, friends, did they really accomplish anything more than they normally do? Or did the change in the format just afford them the ability to beat a couple of more teams that were roughly the caliber of some of the better teams they play in the Big Ten, but none of the best teams they play in the Big Ten? My point there is, don't let the fact that in the abstract, sort of blind resume, that they went deep in the playoff convince you that they took some big step this year. I'm not sure they took a gigantic step. They didn't need to, by the way. Penn State was not a poverty program. They've been really good. All I'm saying is, I don't think they took the leap to great this year. It was a really good team. It was a really good performance again. So I am not national championship or bust on Penn State. I hope I've been pretty clear there. Oklahoma, yes, we cannot conclude this segment without talking about Oklahoma. Brent Venables, all right, so we're a few years in now. 2 losing seasons out of 3. Not good. This is Oklahoma. It's not good enough. I looked at the FanDuel odds to win the whole thing, and they are 11th in the SEC. They have the 11th best odds just in the SEC to win the whole thing this upcoming year. And the worst part of that is Texas looks like they're going to be there every year. Texas is a playoff mainstay at this point. Got a new coordinator there. Got a new offensive coordinator. Got a new quarterback. Tough schedule. I don't think it's quite time to talk about who has the toughest schedule. But, I mean, this time last year we knew Florida's got the toughest schedule in the SEC. It may be Oklahoma this year that has the toughest schedule in the SEC, and yet it's Oklahoma. So it's the SEC. Like, you knew what you were signing up for. Oklahoma is supposed to be part of what makes the SEC tough. Oklahoma's not supposed to be victimized by the SEC. That's not good enough. So there's a lot of pressure out there this year. There should be. Again, it's Oklahoma. There should be. That's the standards, the way it is there for a reason. There's the schedule, by the way. Just a little heads up for those of you who haven't looked at the upcoming schedules. Michigan at Oklahoma, week 2. They got no true road game. Wait, whoa. Jesse, is this right? Oklahoma goes to Temple? That's happening? That's something that's happening? In football? Okay. You know what? Even though I have no reason to doubt it, I still doubt it. Elsewhere on the schedule, they go to Neyland, they go to Tuscaloosa, they go to Columbia. They play the team from Columbia, Missouri at home. They finish with LSU. Ole Miss is thrown in there. Of course, you got Texas, got Auburn, Michigan, as I said. Allegedly, they're going to Temple. Why? Jesse's talking to me in my ear. Why? We need, you know what? I know just the person to call at Oklahoma. I have some scheduling questions, and the powers that be should expect a text from me shortly in Norman, Oklahoma. I don't get it. I know one of the draws for these folks when they're making their schedules to play at Temple is a lot of your alumni flock to the Northeast for work. And so, Philadelphia is a good place to go. Like, I remember talking to Miami. Folks at Miami, they had to go play at Stanford. And they're like, dude, we love that. We love playing against Rutgers, or we love going to play Stanford because we get the people who don't live in Miami, they get to see us in these big cities. And I'm like, okay, I guess. That is not my scheduling philosophy at Pate State. Let me just say that.